often heard and said that change is the only constant. Research and innovation ensures that the industry embraces changes and advances towards growth. The blend of imagination and ambition gives rise to innovation. Myself, Ankita Modi, convener of Tech Tattva 2020, take the pleasure to welcome Mr. Guru Prasad, Vice President and Director of Robot Bosch Engineering and Business Solutions. Mr. Guru Prasad heads the healthcare business area within India. He is also one of the directors at Bosch Healthcare Solutions, Germany, focusing on the portfolio of medical screening and software solutions worldwide. He has been instrumental in furthering healthcare thought leadership and represents Bosch Healthcare as a member of various global forums and alliances. Mr. Guru Prasad is associated with the Bosch Group since year 2000, with 2.5 decades of professional experience spanning diverse areas of engineering, information science, and corporate functions like business, development, sales, and marketing. He has been instrumental in driving several entrepreneurial businesses. He is also responsible for steering new business teams for accelerating innovation-led business growth within Bosch India Regional Organization. Mr. Guru Prasad is an alumnus of IIM Bangalore and holds a bachelor degree in engineering. We are pleased to have you with us, sir. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ankita. Good evening, all. I'm happy to be invited to this forum. I would once again say that this was possible due to the relentless follow from Ankita. It's more thanks to her that I'm able to participate and share my thoughts. What we have today is a topic which is at the foundation of what most of you will be looking into for the rest of your career. Yeah, this is what propels the humankind forward. And what the topic which I would be shedding some light on is this whole topic about the innovation paradigm. And mostly I would be focusing on the approach, the market research based approaches to how to unearth hidden white spaces when somebody goes about in the search of innovation and evolving innovative solutions. I have with me colleagues from Bosch. My request would be that let it not be too much of a monologue from my side. Whoever is online, request you to type in your remarks, questions. There is a colleague of mine, Ms. Madhu, who will be monitoring the chat, and in between we will give it adequate pauses that we are able to address your questions as well. With that, let me start. First and foremost, before we begin with the word innovation, we need to have clarity on another word which is often misinterpreted and colloquially substituted for the word innovation. There are two words actually we are looking at. You can see it on the slide number 2. It is, the first one is invention and the second one actually is innovation. Many a time we exchange these two words, but in reality they are two different topics. So the first few minutes I would try to elaborate a little bit what is the difference between the two and why we have to be careful when we use these two words. I'm in slide number 3. I just tell the slide number so that in the event there is a lag in the communication, you're able to follow it up. What is invention and what is innovation is the focus of this slide. Let's start with the word invention. I think all along the word invention comes more during our education processes when we learn, when we study in schools, colleges. So what is invention? Invention is very simple. It is that eureka moment of developing a new technology or a capability. It's important to note inventions largely occur for their own sake. Generally, when something is invented, there is no specific need or a demand of what to do with that. Because of this attribute of invention, inventions are largely anchored on fundamental science, and inventions are based on this pure sciences and the fundamental sciences in terms of their genesis. I'm sure you are aware of very many inventions. Let's take, just for the clarity, one example. The invention of a transistor from the advances of physics and chemistry, let's say 50 years ago or 45 years ago, can be classic called as invention. When we are talking today, without this fundamental component which was invented then, there was no way we could have started this communication, have this communication channels, and have the gadgets through which we are actually able to hear and see each other without physically being part of that interaction. So remember, a transistor is an invention. It is again an applied invention originating from the advances in electrical engineering, electronics engineering, but all of them can be traced to physics. And then the whole topic of movement of electrons, when do electrons move and how do you prevent them from moving? It's all about that. And then I'm sure you know about the transistor logic. So I think that's for an invention. If that is an invention, what is an innovation? Innovation is all about creating value. Yeah. In innovation, you actually start representing a problem. Please note, against invention, there was no problem there. Here it is a problem. And then you go about finding a solution. Because of that, inherently, innovation is a matching of capability with a problem. So it is a seed versus need problem matching. Because it is to do with a problem, this innovation is in the realm of a businessman's going about. So the key component of innovation is all the business translation, the value creation, the value appropriation, and the value generation somewhere in between. I hope it is very clear. I'll give it a pause if just in case somebody has a remark or a question on invention and innovation, we can take it before we go a little bit deeper into innovation. I'll give it a pause for about 10 seconds, Madhu, in case you have already got something.
Yeah, Guru. So there are no questions which can be posted here, I think. But if anybody has a comment or a question, they could unmute themselves and raise the point.
They'll type into the comment section, ma'am. The students in the organization, they are able to type it. We'll continue further.
Okay, perfect. Then I move forward. So with this, basically we are baselining what is an invention and we are baselining what is an innovation. And further on, we will little bit focus more on the innovation. I'm in slide number 4 for reference. Innovations can be done in multiple different ways. It's rather very difficult to quantify an approach or a method. What we have done here is just to get the flow running and to get the vehicle moving on the track. We have just listed 2-3 areas which typically are looked into when an innovator starts going forward. What are the approaches to systematic innovation? How do the matching of the seeds and the needs occur? And finally, how do you determine readiness of your innovation and its market fit? Slide number 5, we will go a little bit, we devote each slide on one point so that we get a little bit more clarity. Recall slide number 4, approaches to systematic innovation, matching of seeds and needs, readiness and market fit. Slide number 5. Typically, when you're looking at systematic innovation or the approaches towards systematic innovation, you can broadly consider there are 2 streams of thoughts on the approaches. Remember the word, it is market driven. You are already able to see that we are transitioning out of talking physics, chemistry, biology. We started talking like a businessman. We're talking of a market. What are the two methods? Outcome driven innovation. This is one approach. In this, you focus on the outcome that the customer aims to achieve. You base all your actions on developing customer empathy, with which you understand the customer's problem, and hence you are able to walk into their shoe to solve that problem. Very complex English words. A simple example will give you an idea. People don't want to buy a 1/4 inch drill, but they actually are searching for a 1/4 inch hole. I hope you're able to appreciate the difference. The innovator is actually going to deliver a drill which is an innovative drill, but the actual end customer is actually not bothered about that innovation. He's only bothered about the outcome of the innovation. A perfect high tolerance 1/4 inch hole is what they're paying money for. Second approach, linkages driven innovation approach. In this, the whole methodology is the approach of how to find the chain of thoughts in the customer's mind and augmenting that, enhancing that, or bettering that is the process of this innovation methodology. Again, complex English example. Imagine the process or the activity of purchasing an automobile. Customers have a thought process how they go about searching such a vehicle which will suit their needs. And one of the, or let's say some of the innovations which we all ourselves use today are these websites, portals and apps which allow you to stream your thoughts, and somehow in the end they come out with a short list of automobiles which possibly may be of interest to you. Please note, in the first one the outcome was very, very clear. In the second one, the outcome is very clear, but the linkages were not very clear. Even there is a value which can be created with innovative tools and techniques. The simplest, of course, there are a lot many tools and techniques starting from artificial intelligence to AR, VR, which you can bring, but we let us, in order to understand, keep it simple as a automotive buying portal or an app which guides through that customer by bringing about the linkages, which ultimately the customer is able to say, great, I think I made a better choice. So the customer is willing to pay for that linkage creation and linkage management. I'll move on to slide 6. This we spoke about in slide 5, the market, which is the driver. In the next one, it is the technology which is the driver. If everything is market, there should be no world for engineers. Engineers should not be doing engineering, and I think even in your institute you would not be studying. Engineering science are as equally important in innovation activity as is the market and the business and the whole world of financial transaction. The technologies can be again very, very high level, clustered into two buckets, perspective and heuristic, and they can be used to create new innovative applications. In perspective, you represent the problem, you define the problem. In heuristic, you find a way to solve the problem, and you somehow are able to articulate how you will transverse the landscape of the problem. Because ultimately, remember, even in innovation, you need to solve something. And when you apply technology, you can take a perspective view or you can take a heuristic view, or it is normally required that you take both the views so that you're able to faster innovate and tie the loose ends which are not so obvious when it begins. Slide number 7. Before I move on to slide number 7, Madhu, did you get any remarks, questions?
I won't be able to see the comment section, I think. Maybe Ankita, if you have any questions from the students, you could let us know.
Not yet, so we'll continue.
Okay. We move on to the next block. You'll recall that slide number 3 or 4 where we spoke about the 3 blocks, and we are now going to the needs and the seeds second point. In innovation, it is very, very important that you don't fall in love with your own ideas. This is an innovator's pitfall, an innovator's vicious dilemma, that because it is such an involved activity, many tend to fall in love with their ideas and the process of innovation actually then stagnates. Let's look at the two topics, the seed and the need. On the seed side of it, it's a focus on the capability that a technology can offer. I think we discussed that. In seed, the technology comes first, and then there is a search for potential use cases. Again, an example. Imagine the success story of Qualcomm using advances in transistor technology. Remember, we discussed the transistor, which was an invention long ago. And then somebody is innovating on the technology, packing more and more transistors into less and less space. And then imagine that powering the ever innovating space of mobile phones, which is today omnipresent with all of us anywhere in the world. In seeds driven innovation, please be aware, Qualcomm actually will be working on substantial amount of time, energy, effort, and money in evolving something without clearly knowing what would be that outcome of it other than a technical specification. So in seed driven innovation, the market need is not clearly translatable. There is a need for packing more and more transistor, for getting that high throughput, etc. But the team who is doing that is really not bothered how somebody would use that to make the next generation smartphone after Qualcomm releases a chip into the market. In needs driven innovation, please note, very clear, the word itself says the focus is on customer need and the innovation is based on market requirements and market feedback. You see the diametrically different aspect of it. Maybe an example will help. Sony long ago, maybe this is a dated example, but this is a very easily understandable example. Sony evolved the Walkman as an innovation when they realized people like to listen to music on the go. And this Sony general manager, who is to take a break after his lunch in a park in front of the Sony offices, was seeing people with transistors on their shoulder taking a stroll, listening to the music from the transistors. The transistors then were almost the size of a battery, what you see in an automobile today. So please note how heavy and uncomfortable it should have been. And then he comes back and says, there is a possibility for an innovation because we are already the world leader in music technology then. We are world leader also in all those electronics. We know how to play the music as well. And then he evolved this Walkman, which is something which can be put into the pocket from a battery-like stuff on the shoulder. The customer actually didn't know that transistor or the tape recorder actually could have been made into a Walkman, and this is the need-driven innovation where technology was already existing, but a form factor, an aesthetic, an appearance, an utility, even the customer was not able to put the finger upon. 30 years later, Apple did the same thing with iPod. They looked at the Walkman and had the same feeling. My God, why do we require this? Instead of the tape going into the Walkman, I have iTunes. I will actually deliver the music without the tape, and I'll make that iPod so small. Actually, you can put lot many things in the pocket other than the iPod along with the iPod. So needs and seeds have their own advantages, and a balance between the two is required, because actually the seed and the need go together in deriving a great innovation and evolving a great innovative product into the market. I'll move on to the last one. This is the how do you determine the readiness and market fit? I did everything, but do innovations always succeed? Not normally. Innovations are notorious for failure. On the contrary, minority of the innovations are what remain success in the world. Majority of them don't create that mark for which they were intended. Why does that happen? These complex parameters have a significant say in the determination of whether an innovation is successful, long-standing, and sustainable in the actual cruel outside world. What are they? Technology readiness, market readiness, commercial readiness, and finally the team readiness. All of them actually address different aspects of how an organization evolves in innovation, and they also address how an organization which fails in delivering innovation would have suffered in one of the aspects. Slide number 9. This is the technology readiness angle. Technology readiness is very easy said than done, because if you talk to any innovator, they will say they always find the technology available, not readily, that could be taken for their innovative endeavor. What are the features? We have just numbered it in 4 blocks. Unique value proposition, significant strength and capability are needed. The technology, point number 2, benchmarking. The technology should be competitively benchmarked. Definitely the technology which you're going to pick up should have distinct advantages over existing offerings or cheap substitutes. Market feedback. Continuous feedback on the functionality from the market is very important, because a particular technology as envisioned by the organization which is evolving it need not be accepted by the end customer, and it should have a low dependence on other complements so that it remains sustainable after the market launch. Ultimately, technology comes always with unknown risks, so it should be point number 4. This should be devoid of any safety and environmental risk, and it should be compliant to regulations so that the safety during usage of that innovation in the form of a product is always guaranteed. Some of these look very theoretical, but if you really talk to an innovator, when something fails, they're actually able to trace it back to one point. Yeah, one point among many of these points where they say we had a miscalculation there, and due to that miscalculation, we lost out. Yeah. Now, in order to do that, there is this concept of MVP. Yeah, because you're juggling so many balls together that each one of them you can imagine are like frogs jumping around. The innovator is juggling with those all jumping frogs, and then it is extremely hard that all of them are able to be balanced. Then one tool which is used by by anybody doing innovation is called MVP, minimum viable product. Please look at the right side image before you read the left side points. See the first block, not like this. Yes, you can create MVP with that thought process, but that is not the thought process which is required for an MVP. Look at the bottom one. You start with a roller board, then you go to I think it is called as a scooty or scooter or something, what the children play, but it is a means of mobility. Then you go to the cycle, a motorcycle and a car. Actually, from all the way from 1 to 5, the problem of mobility was solved in all of them. Whereas if you look at the 1 to 4 on the top, till you came to 4, actually the problem of mobility was never in your focus. Yeah, so this is the minimum feature to build the product so that you can validate it with the customer. Is this what you wanted to do? And like in the car, the final topic about air conditioned, shaded may not exist in one, but then you can always tell the customer, if you think that you are able to move faster, maybe I can always work on that other aspect. And important here, can the user use your first MVP to achieve your final goal, at least in a broad way? Anything on top of that, you can then still take the risk that you will build it up. With that, I think I'll again pause here. Slide, let's say 3 to 10 or 4 to 10 gives you some tools and techniques of how innovation goes about in a competitive free market business world. Hope you got a little bit insight. You can go on with the topics related to innovation endlessly into many hours, but due to paucity of time, I would rather give the treatment at this level so that you get the basic framework of what are required in the event you have to innovate in your career as part of your professional endeavors. The next one is a little bit structured way. This is a lean canvas, courtesy Ash Maurya, who put that into a form and factor. Just to be very clear, even the most modern companies, including the company I come from, Bosch, we regularly use this to bring structure into the madness or to contain those jumping frogs into a meaningful way until we are able to bring about a systematic innovation, productize it and launch it in the market. In this, for the innovation aspect, as imagine you are more coming from a researcher perspective, a technologist perspective, an engineering perspective, there are these 4 blocks out of the 9 blocks which are important. Just for convenience, I have color coded them with the background color. Do you know the problem? Can you define the solution, if not all the top features? Are you able to communicate to your end customer what is the value you are creating? Do you know whom you want to sell this to? The customer segment. Problem, solution, value proposition and customer. Many a time in a research oriented endeavor, these things are not given due treatment and hence a research remains at a theoretical level, not translatable into an innovation that could be taken to market. The remaining 5 blocks, please note, are the world of a MBA graduate. What are the key metrics to measure the value proposition of the solution? The unfair advantage. What is the advantage the solution is actually bringing to my customer? How do I take this offering to the customer, which is through the various channels. Finally, what is the price my customer has to pay for it? And will I be profitable if my customer pays whatever money they're planning to give? And can I be a sustainable and viable business? That's the last aspect of revenue stream. Lean canvas methodology, again, in a simple way, the who, what, and the how. Who, target customer, understanding their roles. What, problems faced and what are the emerging needs out of that problem. How, what is the value you offer, and actually, how do you solve the problems? Please note, many a time a customer colloquially is considered one entity, but in reality, the customer is not one entity. The customer, there are multiple personas and archetypes which together form the cluster of customer. I would want you to reflect upon some of your own purchases in the recent past. There is typically an initiator. Initiator need not be you. The initiator can be a message, a communication, an ad which is given to you. Then that starts ringing in your mind, or even before it starts ringing in your mind, you are actually looking at somebody who can influence whether that ringing should continue or the ringing is frivolous and to be discarded. They are the influencers who are influencing you. Then there is a buyer. Imagine it is a product for a child. The buyer is not the user. The buyer is actually the parent. So how do you communicate to the buyer the value of that product, which they now have to decide if at all you have to go, if at all you have to go to your actual user. I think buyer, I think we already automatically discussed user. Then there is a decision maker. The decision maker may be, generally it can be the person who will actually give out the hard cash, the dollar bills to make that purchase. And after that, the payer may be, imagine it's a small time purchase, it is available in your pocket, or imagine it's a big purchase. Typically a payer can be an intermediary like a financial institution who is giving it as an EMI, a loan, a lease, a whatever. So as you can see here, the who an innovator needs to address is in itself a complex set of personas. Next is, how do you address the pain point of the customers? Yeah, it is not at all easy. Most of the solutions which are termed innovative, which come to market and fail, somewhere actually have a problem on understanding of the customer pain. You need to be able to get the process pain points, the financial pain points, the productivity related pain points, and after the purchase of the product, as well the support pain points, and bring it into the design of the innovation or the evolution of the innovation, so that when the product comes to the market, it is able to address all of them in a meaningful way and in a balanced way. There is nothing that, okay, it's an absolute killer when it comes to finance, but by the time I use it, it is so pathetic. I am better off not spending that money. My time consumption to make it work is more than the cost advantage I'm getting in finance. So these are the typical dilemmas and the imbalanced decision which leads an innovative product towards a failure. Ways to capture customer insights. Why is this important? Because please note, we spoke about the customer persona. if you are not able to capture those insights, whatever you are up to will never be complete and will never be a successful innovation and commercially viable innovation. So how do you identify the value proposition? You repeatedly do surveys and polls to gauge what is the prevailing condition of the environment, of the market, of the individual subsegment of my customer, the macroeconomics behind it, the microeconomics behind it, and as well the human needs and desires as part of the assessment. You do a lot of online research to find out what is that competitively viable, what is available in the market, what are its drawbacks, and why is that I should do what I want to do, and is that far better than what is available in the market. Once you have basic surveys, polls, and online research done, you start deliberating the content in what is called as focus group discussion, where you bring the real personas of customer. You start openly debating with them whether your analysis rings a bell in them or it just is passing away without registering a recall in them. After focus group discussions, by that time possibly you already, in the focus group discussion, typically you will already come out with an MVP, and then you have to deploy the MVP and start the keen observation. How is my user using it? Is the user benefiting out of it, or is the user struggling to use my innovation? Please note that some amount of struggle in an MVP is a normal, but if it is beyond that some amount, there is a fundamental course correction in innovation vocabulary that is called as pivot, which you have to implement. Once the MVP is in the market, it is under usage, you start then the focused interviews where you interview a person in terms of what is going on, and from that you get a lot of insight into your conceptualization, your creation, how is it getting perceived. You finally, assuming all these things are done, you come to the world of preparing a case study, and the case, it is not the preparing the case study. You also have to, before you put the big bucks into your innovation, really go through all the disasters from the past and understand what you should not do. And that is the whole topic of the business case study research. As well, the technologists and the creators will do a lot of literature research in order to ascertain their mapping of the components. Does it have any known pitfall in the literature, because they may be using several earlier inventions, innovations, and building on top of that one more layer as part of the current innovative endeavor. Yeah, with that, basically you identify the near and the long-term opportunities. Is the identified solution meeting the customer expectations? It may look simple, but trust me, it is one of the most toughest questions an innovator always is trying to understand and analyze throughout that innovation cycle. Is it better than the competitors? Oh, for example, if you look at the smartphone world, you can imagine their plight. That competition itself is slipping out of hand every 3 months because everybody is secretive and launching one better than the other product into the market. The third one, does the organization where the individual or the innovation is anchored, do they have the capability and to deliver that desired output? That itself can be a big challenge in itself. Is it profitable? Next one. This is all about, I have to make investments in terms of time, energy, resource. Will this be a profitable endeavor, or will it be a great endeavor, but I will go bankrupt in it because there's no way I'm going to cover my costs? And finally, does the target segment get convinced with the what is the bundle I'm bringing it to them? And again, it's important in innovation, the long story short, we're about to conclude. It has to be the final call is the market which will take the whether the innovation is viable, sustainable, and does it have a position in the free market world. At this, I will stop. I do hope that I have not taken too much time. Yeah, we are well within time, exactly within time. Any questions, any remarks which we can take it up now?
Yes, sir, there are a few questions from the participants.
Go on, please.
Yeah. How does one exactly move from the invention phase to the innovation phase? Because we think that innovation includes the product manufacturing stages. So how do you go about converting research into real world products?
Remember, invention is all about proving something which is better, faster, lighter, anything. But in an invention, the market validation aspect is largely not the focus. So when you want to take an invention to an innovation, the only ingredient into that preparation of that food which we are talking about is the ingredient of the market, and then you will know whether the invention has any relevant meaning to become powering an innovative endeavor which can be taken to the market. So the market forces are what is largely not present in an invention. It could be present, but of a magnitude much smaller. But market forces are a large ingredient in innovative endeavors.
Yes, sir. We'll move on to the second question is what is team readiness?
Team readiness. See, typically innovations are all about somebody visualizing a future state and somebody who is able to have that thinking process to visualize what is to be done. But remember that one individual who conceptualizes, envisages, or who is a visionary alone cannot deliver an innovation from the sheer human capability point of view, the competence point of view, the various functions point of view. And there is where the key element of a successful, competent, and let me stop it there. A competent team is absolutely needed to bring the dreams of that founder, co-founder, innovator into a meaningful product. To do that, please note, it could involve months, years, decades of hard work, and that hard work is typically the net outcome of the team component, which we had put it in the clover leaf.
Yes, sir. And sir, as the funding for research work is very less in India, so how shall one overcome this obstacle?
Funding for research. See, there are avenues for fundamental research. The avenues for fundamental research tend to be far more robust, far more viable, as and when you are imagine the country, it is higher on the developed scale, because in the world of research, it is the overall fundamental betterment which you are looking at, and developed countries tend to have far more robust sources. That does not mean that fundamental research is not happening in developing countries. Maybe there it is important, whatever constraints are there in funding, could that be bridged by ecosystem partnership, that the fundamental research has already early traceability to a potential product, and hence a non-governmental entity or a private entity is also taking the burden of funding that fundamental research. That is where the industry academia partnership comes into play, and very many fundamental research which are going on, including very many fundamental research sponsored by the company I represent, are having that at the back of mind when they establish these centers of excellence in institutes or chairs of excellence in these institutes, and it's actually funded by the private commercial entity.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And so as a fresher in this industry, what would you advise us to innovate as much fund is needed for the same? So how shall we go about with this, like as a fresher right now?
If you are able to start thinking about the market when you have ideas, you already are taking the baby steps towards being an innovator. If you believe that you are better off completely isolated in a technical setup, a laboratory setup, a research setup, you are far better off being an inventor. But the bigger purpose, if inventions also do not have or do not lead to an innovation, the impact to the world will be that much less, and hence even an inventive endeavor, if it could be early married to an innovative outcome that could be taken to the world, that aspect can be the first baby step which anybody who is wanting to work in the knowledge industry could carry along to become eventually an innovator.
Okay, sir. So how do we recognize a Cobra effect? Some products make the initial problem more worse or translate an equivalently or more tougher problem. Should we refrain from calling such outcomes innovations?
If it is there in your MVP, you potentially discovered a problem well in advance. If it is there in your final product, maybe you did not follow the innovations, let's say cookbook, which I think we got a glimpse in the last 45 minutes, in the right way. So to prevent that effect is all that pain and energy and the frustration of evolving an MVP, taking it to the market, validating it, so that there are no undue bigger level side effects which are detrimental to the product success itself. That is the whole purpose of MVP.
Sir, would you suggest any book or websites or reference to go through more about this?
Trust me, there is no way I will be able to even give you the list of them, but there are very many very good books. Being an institute, a large institute, trust me, I have come to your library. I was taken for a walk in your library by your director. I don't think so. There should be any dearth of good literature which you cannot access within your own library. And today, it need not be just limited to your library. The world of digital media is so high that you can look at content which possibly is not even in a book form. It can be a case study, it can be a journal article, but I would say that there is no dearth of information freely available. I'm not even talking you have to pay for it. It's freely available, please.
So what are the steps to go from the initial ideation phase towards creating the MVP?
We did touch upon that. Let me take you to that automobile slide. It is simple. Look at the two pictures. The one at the bottom, which we discussed, should give you a direction how to go towards an MVP. Remember, in this picture, in the step number 1 itself, the problem of mobility which this innovator was trying to solve was actually solved. It did not come with all the advantages. It did not come with a mechanical movement, electromobility. None of them are there, but mobility was solved. So this would be the approach for an MVP evolution, and not the one on top, which looks you're going piece by piece, but has no relevance to the end customer till you reach stage number 4. MVP is really MVP, minimum viable product. What is the product? The problem for which you're solving the, you're addressing a problem. So the product is solving that problem. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I think that's all the questions from our participants.
Very good. I do hope that in this short time you got some insight. Is there anybody? Yeah, sorry. Okay. I do hope that in this short duration you did get an insight. I only urge you to not leave it at this stage. This is really the basic fundamentals what we spoke about today. I do hope that this motivates you to read more about it, and I do hope that very many of you would take innovative topics into the market during your career. I would only wish you all the best, and thank you very much for inviting me.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So there's one more question which has come here.
Go on.
Is there a difference between a MVP and a prototype? Any subtle difference between?
MVP and a prototype. Again, you can frankly you can Google. There are technical differences, but for all initial understanding, you can, a prototype is more an engineer's vocabulary. Trust me. A MVP is more a businessman's vocabulary. They have their own small differences, but for a large level of understanding, you could equate prototypes and MVPs as the same. Yeah, prototype tends to be a little bit more advanced forms of MVP because the current thought process on MVP can be really stripped down prototypes. So it is only the grade of maturity and the level of sophistication. Like this, there are very many parameters which distinguish between prototype and MVP, but largely for a beginner, you can call both of them nearly the same.
Okay, sir. So thank you so much for your valuable insights. It's really informative for us to know about them, and we believe that we'll be able to contribute more towards it.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you for facilitating, and yeah, good evening. Bye bye.
Yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for joining us.
Bye bye.
Thank you.